again, good evening. As you've heard, join me now is Deputy President William Samoei Ruto. Thank you for coming and joining us at the summit. Well, it's been an interesting 100 days for you that has certainly been marked by the crisis in the education sector. Yes, teachers are back to work now, technically speaking, but schools are closed. Why are schools closed?
Well, as you are aware, there were issues and concerns that were raised by the teaching fraternity. We did persuade them right from the word go that a strike is not the way to go. Negotiations, consultations, and search for agreement is the way to go. But that's now behind us. We are meeting tomorrow as a government to be able to map out how not only to call back the schools into but also how to cover the time lost. And we're consulting with the Kenya National Examination Council and the other stakeholders on a clear roadmap so that we not only cover time lost, but also we make sure that the final exams for the Form 4s and the Standard 8 are not affected in any way.
But why exactly were they closed in the first place?
It might mean that we may go into 2 to 3 weeks of the August holidays.
But why were they closed in the first place? You know
the issues, madam. The teachers wanted an agreement that was signed in 1997 to be implemented. The teachers did appreciate, although they didn't want to accept, that agreement was subsequently amended, and that it was now necessary under the new constitutional dispensation for there to be a collective bargaining agreement between the government as an employer, or the teacher service for that matter, as an employer, and the teachers. And fortunately, finally, reason prevailed, and teachers called off the strike. We made this offer way back about 10 days ago. This strike should have ended then. We told the teachers we are prepared as government to look at the terms of service and conditions of service of teachers. We have agreed, and it was not in contention, that we need to review their commuter allowance, deal with readers allowance for teachers who are handicapped, deal with special allowance for teachers, promotion allowance, special allowance. We've all sorted out.
And I think those have been covered well in the media. So what amount of time do you estimate is it going to take to agree on this new schedule so that schools are actually officially reopened?
I think by tomorrow the government is going to announce the new timetable for all our primary schools, because our secondary schools are already in session.
And open schools when?
That's a decision that's going to be made after consultations with the various stakeholders and agreement on how not only to open the schools, but also how to cover the time lost.
Okay, so still it's going to take a bit of time. I want to discuss...
Tomorrow is not a bit of time, madam.
Well, you're saying we do not know when they're going to be opened properly, that is still subject to consultation. So that will take some time.
Okay.
I want to move on to the question of the public wage bill, which right now stands at 458 billion shillings. It's certainly a matter that has concerned the president, was the subject of his first speech in parliament. What exactly is the plan to reduce this spending?
The wage bill is a huge monster in our expenditure schedule. And if I can give it a bit of a background, in developing economies, or we can call it low-income economies, 7% of the GDP is allowed to go to wage bill. 8.5% for an economy like ours. As we are talking, our wage bill is 14.6% of our GDP. Almost twice what is conventionally acceptable. Look at it this way. 56% of all the ordinary revenue we collect, the taxes you and me pay, go to paying 700,000 men and women who work for the government.
How are you going to fix it?
I just want so that we understand, so that when we talk about the wage bill and we say it is a time, number one, we freeze increases of salaries and allowances and subject every discussion to the salaries review commission, salaries and remuneration commission, so that and that body was set up specifically in the constitution so that to balance the need to pay workers, the need for operations and maintenance, and the need for development, so that all these are balanced. So number one, we must discuss, and yesterday I met with COTU, the umbrella body for workers, and we have agreed with COTU that we need to have a national debate on the wage bill. As we are talking today, government is a better payer than even the private sector. And you see, government is not about pay. Government is about service. And this is the real reality we must begin to deal with.
Allow me to interject, because I really want to capture what you're saying. We are at 14%, as you have said, and the ideal percentage should be about 7% worldwide. Those are the standards. So walk me through the process. How are you going to break it down? Is there an incremental way you're looking at in the next 5 years or in the next 7 years? We want to bring it down to what and how we're going to do it?
Number one, we want to have a national debate so that the facts are out there for every citizen to appreciate. It is not morally right for us to collect taxes from 40 million Kenyans, 56% of that money, to pay only 700,000 of us. There is something not quite adding up. Number two, we need to freeze all employment in the public sector. We need to freeze the increment of salaries. And that's the reason why we were sitting down the teachers and telling them it is not possible for us to increase your house allowance, because then it means we must increase house allowance for everybody. And we cannot be a nation of paying salaries. How are we going to grow this economy by double digits? How are we going to take Kenya to the next level?
I suppose what I'm looking for is something that is actually measurable in terms of time, that is time-bound.
So we are bringing on board the productivity bill, which is going to be passed shortly in Parliament, so that every public worker is measured by what they can deliver and paid for what they can deliver. And this debate is going to rage, and I am sure Kenyans are going to participate. And let me tell you, in the last 2.5 years, the wage bill has grown by 27% in terms of the numbers of people we employ and the salaries that are paid, because we keep adding salaries, we keep adding numbers, and yet
And that is why it is shocking that the Jubilee government went ahead to all but completely indulge MPs when it came to their salaries. Basically, the only thing that they gave up was the ad hoc sitting allowance. And that created the kind of mentality that there is some extra cash somewhere.
By the way, we didn't negotiate with the members of parliament. For your information, members of parliament wanted their salary reinstated to 850,000 shillings. We told them it was not possible.
But you agreed to 44,375,000 incrementally for 5 years.
The salaries and the salaries commission stuck to their guns. Today, the salary of a member of parliament is 500,000 taxed.
But it will increase, as I have said, by 44,000 and some. Yes. Over the next 5 years, which will actually amount to, by the end of those 5 years, 1 billion shillings. That is just going purely to pay members of parliament.
Just wait. That was the salaries that were recommended by the Salaries and Wages Review Commission, the SRC Commission. Those are the salaries that were set up. And for your information, let me tell you, members of parliament used to earn 850,000 Kenya shillings. I was a member of parliament. And you used to earn mileage on top of that, right? Today, members of parliament, a sitting member of parliament today earns less than a sitting member of parliament in the last parliament.
But you can still get a whole raft of other measures, inclling tax-free cars, etc. I suppose the point I am making, Mr. Deputy President, is that it opened up a can of worms where everyone else feels this government actually has money and is refusing to spend it on anyone but members of parliament.
For your information, we as a government have complied with the recommendations of the Salaries Commission. And for your information, and I can say this authoritatively, members of parliament in this parliament earn less than members of parliament in the last,
but still earn way more than any other parliamentarians in the world. Parliament. I want to move away from MPs because it's a sticky point, and I think it is clear and obvious upon all Kenyans. They still earn way too much, and we need to find a way of getting our money's worth out of their productivity. And I'm glad you've talked about a productivity bill.
Absolutely.
But let me move on to the question of the cabinet, which of course your government has reduced to 18 slots, but we haven't really seen that cascaded down to the other employees under these ministries. Is there a plan for that to make it truly a lean team?
Absolutely. There is a plan which we are discussing across the public sector to rationalize employees, to make sure that every man or woman employed in government has a designated job, has measurable results, and at the end of the year, we can account for public money spent on paying salaries. It is a process that we have factored in money in the budget. If it will end up with a situation where we find that there are people who are redundant, they may not necessarily fit in any of the jobs, naturally, these are people who will be exited, and there will be a pay package for them to exit the service.
Is this a time-bound process?
Exactly, in 3 years.
In 2 years?
In 3 years, we should be able to conclude that process.
In 3 years?
Yes.
Okay, we'll check up on you in 3
Please,
years. Allow me to move on now to the VAT bill. And of course, there's been the question, why at a time when Kenyans are already struggling so much to get by, would you even make it conceivable that you would be the guys to tax unga?
Let me explain to you. We need to get the development paradigm in our country right. How do you reduce the cost of living? How do you make sure that we grow this economy? There are a couple of things you must do. Number one, to be able to reduce the cost of living, you must enhance production, especially of food items. The way to enhance production is to put money, and that is what we have done in this budget. In this budget, we have put 15 billion shillings to bring under irrigation an extra 1 million acres. What will that do? 500,000 of those acres will be on the most basic food item, maize. We will be able to produce next year, God willing, another 20 million bags of maize through irrigation. We will have another 200,000 acres under sugarcane. We will have 100,000 acres under dairy. What is going to happen? We are going to ensure that the prices of unga will come down from approximately 120 shillings now, a 2 kilogram packet, to between 60 and 65.
And how is this purely through supply and demand?
Purely through supply and demand. That is what it is. Because what we produce now is about 36 million bags of maize. If we put 20 million on top of that, naturally, forces of supply and demand will bring down the cost of production.
But just explain to Kenyans at home why you wanted to increase the tax on basic commodities, including flour. If you could please just get to that particular tax.
You have just picked out flour. We have a list of 400 and almost 60 items that were
but
on
flour, obviously, because it is the basic commodity we all need to eat. So why in particular did you go to flour? It is an emotive issue for Kenyans who are hungry and starving and are struggling to put a decent meal, leave alone a balanced meal on the table. So I think we need to not underemphasize the point that flour was a sticking point. So if you could please help us understand, why was this the first
So would you give me a bit of time to explain?
To taxation, please, by all means.
So what I'm saying, madam, is this. To be able to bring down the cost of flour, I have explained to you how it will be done. It will be done purely by enhancing production. If you don't enhance production, anything else you do is neither here nor there, right? And we have a program on how that is going to happen. And for your information, what we intend to do with a VAT bill is to raise an extra between 30 and 40 billion on a wide range of items that were originally exempt. For your information, what we are doing is that we are biting the bullet. The last cabinet had actually seen this opportunity, but they didn't have sufficient courage to push this thing through. In fact, they had prepared the bill, right? We just came and improved on the bill, and so we must bite the bullet. We must tell Kenyans as it is. And for your information, just to avoid the pull and push, we have removed unga, we've removed bread, but we have a list of 400 items that we want citizens to pay VAT. And for your information, madam, 70% of Kenyans don't pay any VAT or will never pay any VAT on unga. Because these are people who are living in rural areas. They go to a posho mill, they siaga their unga, and they go home and eat.
Let's talk about that 70% and the posho mill or the cottage industry.
Who pay unga is you and me who go to the supermarket.
But surely you have an interest in cushioning the middle class as well. That is crucial to any economy.
Why would you?
They too need to feel some reprieve on their pockets. You don't know how much. Let's not go there. But why don't you think the middle class deserve reprieve as well? They're getting taxed left, right, and center.
Let me tell
electricity,
you. Let me tell you, madam. The way to go is we must be a society that has feelings. We have a category of Kenyans who cannot afford a meal. In this year's budget, we have put 9.7 billion so that we bring onto the net from 150,000 of those Kenyans to 300,000. Those are Kenyans who cannot afford anything. They are old people, they are people who are disabled, they are people who are in all manner of categories. We are increasing this year from 150,000 to 300,000 people, citizens who we will put on cash transfers. We are looking, if the VAT bill succeeds, we want to enhance those people in the next 3 years to 1 million people, so that truly you and me who can afford are taxed, so that the real people who cannot afford a meal can have access to some cash to be able to afford a meal.
Can we talk about the posho mills that you've mentioned very interesting, that 70% go there, and those really are the cottage industry. So during your tenure as Agriculture Ministry, you had tried through NCPB to get to at least the miller maize at an affordable cost, and that would be pushed on to the consumer, and that never happened because they had their hardline position. How do you have a clean mechanism where at the end of the day, even the person going to the posho mill, for those few coins that they would pay, so-called few coins that they would pay to have it processed, it's at the best possible price? And would you look at perhaps some kind of joint initiative with county government so that you could invest directly into these posho mills, as you're calling them, or the cottage industry, and will make sure Mwananchi gets the best possible price out of everything? And this, I suppose, applies to all essential goods.
I think the concept of devolution was basically to devolve services, to devolve government resources, and to bring on board the majority of Kenyans to contribute their ideas, and to also supervise what goes on with public money and public initiatives. And looking at the county governments, these are our new growth areas. These are the areas that are going to spin the growing of the economy. And that is why the Jubilee administration is keen and is prepared to work with the county governments, empower the county governments, give sufficient capacity building to county governments so that they can discharge their mandate. And on the unga concept, the issue here is citizens who, and for your information, we are not going to tax unga, whether for you or for me or the ordinary guy. That was a proposal then. I am sure in future, once it is understood, we will go that direction. Okay. For now, because we do not want to quarrel with people, nothing is going to happen.
And I think all Kenyans say amen to that. I want to move on quickly to the question of security, and we'll sort of be in a bit of quick fire questioning right now because of time. Of course, you have talked about in your manifesto the need to reform the NIS. The first 50, 60 days of this government saw some of the worst killings that we've seen, even in areas where we haven't seen that kind of insecurity, like in Western and, of course, traditionally at our border on Northeastern. Everybody wants to know, where is the intelligence community? Is it dead?
I think going forward, the issue of security is a major challenge. We did talk about it during the campaigns. We are very clear. We have a clear roadmap on how to sort out matters of security, right from security intelligence, criminal intelligence, and the entire police machine.
Please tell us about the NIS in particular, the intelligence service that should have forewarned police officers about such attacks.
There is a combination of what happens at the intelligence. In fact, if you ask the intelligence people, they will tell you, we gave this information to the police earlier. There is normally a pull and push about who does what when. That is the chain of command that we want to sort out. We want also to empower police so that the sooner as soon as they get information, they can take action. There has been a problem that the police cannot move as quick as they can because they have their orders have to be sanctioned by the police commission. And we want to sort out that area so that there is a clear chain of command. We've put money in this budget to buy an extra 1,200 vehicles for the police. We have put money to make sure that we equip sufficient with bulletproof vests and helmets, the policemen, so that they can discharge their responsibility of making sure that Kenya is secure in the best possible manner.
Let's talk about the National Police Service Amendments Bill, which is has come from the Office of the President, and I think it is the bill that you're referring to.
It was approved by Cabinet, yes.
Yes, that you're looking at streamlining what is happening. And Johnson Kavuludi, whose powers it seems are up to be usurped by the Inspector General through this bill, told the CIC that it is unconstitutional because the Constitution gives him a clear mandate in as far as hiring, firing, etc. of police officers. Why are you seeking to amend this? And isn't this contrary to the spirit of the Constitution?
For your information, the CIC, the bill that Cabinet approved, was formulated by several bodies, including the CIC. The CIC has made input into this bill because it is necessary. And the Constitution does not envisage a conflict of interest. The Constitution does not envisage a dysfunctional police force. It is necessary for the police to have a clear chain of command.
But doesn't it worry you that there's so much bickering between police officers who are basically supposed to be taking care of Kenyans like Ann Kiguta and the millions who are watching at home, and that they are caught in this crossfire of who should do what? These are my powers you're taking.
Precisely, that's the reason, madam. That's the reason why we have brought this bill, to clear out the bickering and the confusion and put the police on a clear roadmap where police reforms are going to take place. Members of the police force who are incorrigible can be removed. Men and women in uniform who are doing a good job can be promoted, and we can have a functional police force that will ensure that every citizen, their property, their children is safe.
Here's what's likely to worry human rights groups and I think all Kenyans: the fact that this bill is also proposing that the Inspector General will be receiving the reports from the Internal Affairs Unit directly, and that it won't be going to the Kavuludi Commission. And the whole reason why that clause was put there in the first place is because senior police officers would protect each other, and that is why there was need to have a separate body, a civilian body indeed, that could protect the interests of the Kenyan who has been mistreated by police officers.
For your information, there is a police oversight authority, purely civilian, which is actually supposed to check on the excesses of the police force. It is not the Police Service Commission. The Police Service Commission is supposed to be the PR firm, like the way we have
but they are
the
supposed
Public
to
Service
receive
Commission.
the reports from the Internal Affairs audit. They're supposed to go to Kavuludi first and then to the IG. I suppose the concern is that this is another way to protect police officers from actually facing the law should they go contrary to it.
I think whoever is suggesting that does not understand the law. The law is very clear that the oversight authority, the civilian oversight authority to check on the excesses of the police, from the IG to every senior policeman and every policeman in the force, there is an oversight authority chaired by a Mr. Macharia, who is different from the Kavuludi Commission. The Kavuludi Commission is like the public service commission we have in government. It is supposed to sort out the public relations issues, the human resource issues of the police. It is not supposed to be an oversight authority. There is an oversight authority that is different, and that oversight authority will take care of police excess, and it is purely and efficiently run by members of the public who are ordinary citizens. They are not members of the police.
Part of whose powers, referring to the Service Commission, you're seeking to take away through this bill. But we'll see how that will play out in Parliament. I just want to quickly draw to a close by talking about the Kenya Defence Forces. I think a lot of Kenyans are proud of how the entire mission was conducted when we first went into Somalia, only to hear now reports that Kenya is trying to set up a local administration in Jubaland. Is this the position of the Jubilee government?
Well, I guess whoever is saying that must have more information. As far as we are concerned, our security men in Juba and in Kismayu and in the whole of that Jubaland region have gone there for three primary reasons. Number one, we have serious threat of Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab in Kenya. We've seen the atrocities that these terrorist groups can do in our country. It is our responsibility to make sure that we eliminate all elements of Al-Shabaab. Number two, we have 1 million refugees in Kenya from Somalia. It is also our responsibility to ensure that Somalia is safe, working under AMISOM with all other armies from different countries, to ensure that Somalia is safe, so that the 1 million citizens of Somalia in our country can find a safe home to go to. That is the responsibility of KDF. We have no interest whatsoever in anything else.
Including creating a buffer zone by creating an administration in Jubaland?
We have a border. We have a border. It is the responsibility of the international community to ensure that there is adequate security. An administration is set up in Somalia, in Jubaland, and in all the other federal states.
So no interest in a buffer zone?
In Somalia. That is our interest. We have no specific interest as a country. The only specific interest is the interest of Kenya. We are aware that what is happening, part of the security challenges we face as a nation, even as far as Nairobi, are caused by the problems in Somalia. And therefore it becomes our responsibility as a nation to protect the interests of this country and to ensure that Somalia is safe, so that their citizens can go back and we can have a safe border.
As we wind up, it's been 100 days for you in this position. What would you say are the things that the Jubilee government has delivered so far that you are truly proud of? And what perhaps have you not been able to get to that you wanted to, that you regret?
Well, the Jubilee administration, we've been here now for 100 days, as you say. Successfully, we have managed to midwife a new government under a new constitution. We have put in place a good program that is in tandem with our constitution, with our manifesto, right? We've put in place the pledges that we made to the country. We said there would be maternal health care. We have put 3.8 billion. Every mother today in Kenya can walk to any facility and give birth and go home without paying a coin. We are going to extend that to the National Hospital Insurance Fund. In fact, we want to clean up the board of the National Insurance Fund. We want to get new management into the National Hospital Insurance Fund, so that what should have happened 3-4 years ago, we can actually make it happen. So that every citizen anywhere in Kenya can walk to a hospital, a dispensary, a health center, get treated and go home without paying a coin, when we have a clear health scheme. We want to progress that into the National Social Security Fund. Apart from the 9 billion we have put for social security protection, we want to transform NSSF from a provident fund to a pension scheme. And we want to ensure that, you know, if you retire you are not paid 3,000 shillings or 5,000 shillings a month. Because, I mean, we have to be realistic. There are people who immediately they retire, they die because they cannot make ends meet. So we want to transform that. We are very clear on what we want to do. There is a new bill. We want to ensure that inside 2 months that bill is passed so that we can transform NSSF. We are very clear on where we want to take infrastructure in the country. We have already a clear scheme. As I said, we have put 303 billion Kenya shillings into the infrastructure subsector. We want to enhance the road network. We want to ensure that we have a brand new standard gauge railway from Mombasa to Kisumu. We have also planned to make Kisumu into a modern port that can access Rwanda, that can access Uganda, that can access Burundi using the lake. We want to ensure that we create a platform under what now has been commonly known as a digital platform. We are going to do our laptop project. And for your information, if you can give me a minute to explain, the laptop project is a huge enterprise. Because aside from the laptop project, aside from the gadget, there will be another 3 million homes that will have access to electricity using that laptop project. We have, as you've said yourself, we have 5,000 megawatts of energy, which we have programmed to bring onto the grid in the next 48 months, so that we move from 1,500 to 6,000 megawatts onto our grid. That will power the engines of our industry and power the engines of our economy.
And these are the things that you are proud of in 100 days.
We are very clear.
I am sorry, but we need to move on to your challenges because
money in the budget.
Completely out of time.
We are very clear on how we want to take and transform this country.
Please indulge me. Just the final one in one brief minute. Anything that you wish you could have gotten to that you haven't done just yet?
I think so far, we could have avoided, for example, the strike if Nat had, seen what we were trying to do. We could have avoided certain minor hiccups here and there. Maybe we would have done the... we were doing government the first time, processing cabinet secretaries, processing principal secretaries to parliament the very first time. Maybe an earlier arrangement should have been made so that by now we would have the whole government moving. But give us the benefit of the doubt. This was being done for the very first time under a new constitution in a new political dispensation.
And look, we're here to 100 days. Not a new government anymore. I appreciate you being candid about the areas that you feel were challenges for you and you could improve on. I thank you so much for coming here, for giving us your time, expressing your views. Certainly we will continue to check on them in the best interest of Kenyans, which I do believe is what you are trying to achieve, and we are, as well as the media. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. William Samoei Ruto, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. That is what he believes his government has done. Thank you so much for watching. Back to you, Smart. Good night. I'm Ann Kiguta.